I liquidated 40 years of retirement savings to fund my wife's dream business, but the sign on her office door revealed I was actually funding her affair. The brass plaque didn't just say her name, it read Miller and Stevenson Designs, her ex-husband's name cemented right next to hers. I realized in that moment that while the bank loan was in my name, the office lease was in his. They thought they had pulled off the perfect heist, using my credit to build their future. But they made one critical mistake in the loan paperwork. I didn't storm in and scream. Instead, I drove to the bank and triggered a material breach of contract that froze their operating account 20 minutes before their grand opening. I was holding a plastic bag of Thai takeout, pad see ew, extra broccoli, her favorite. That's the detail that sticks with me. I'm standing in the hallway of a Class A office building in downtown Charlotte, wearing my Costco khakis and a windbreaker, holding $20 noodles while my entire life dissolves. The bag was warm against my leg. It smelled like soy sauce and betrayal. I wasn't supposed to be there. That was the thing. Linda had told me the office was still a construction zone. She said the dust would trigger my asthma. She said, "Ben, honey, just wait for the grand opening. I want it to be a surprise." I wanted to surprise her. I'd taken a half-day off from the logistics center. I drove 40 minutes into the city, fighting the I-77 traffic, just to bring her lunch. I felt proud. I truly felt proud walking into that lobby. I told the security guard, "My wife owns the design firm on the 14th floor." I said it with my chest out. My wife, the owner. The elevator ride up was smooth, quiet. I was checking my reflection in the chrome doors, smoothing down my thinning hair. I looked tired. I looked like a man who had just cashed out a 401k he started contributing to in 1989. But I looked happy. Then the doors opened. The hallway smelled like money. Not the old money of the bank downstairs, but new money. Santal 33 perfume, fresh paint, espresso. I walked down the corridor, counting the suite numbers, 1402, 1404, 1406. The double glass doors were frosted. You couldn't see inside, just silhouettes moving around. But the plaque next to the door was crystal clear, brushed brass, heavy, permanent. Miller and Stevenson Designs, Est 2024. My brain stuttered. Miller? That was Linda's maiden name. She used it professionally sometimes. That was fine. But Stevenson? There was only one Stevenson, Richard Stevenson. The man she was married to for 3 years in the 90s. The man she swore was a mistake. The man she said was blocked on every social media platform, email address, and phone number she possessed. I stared at the ampersand, that little symbol curving between their names. It looked intimate. It looked like they were holding hands. My hand went slack. The plastic bag slipped. It hit the floor with a wet thud. The container of pad see ew popped open. Brown sauce splattered across the pristine gray carpet. A floret of broccoli rolled and hit the brass toe kick of the door. I didn't pick it up. I couldn't move. My feet felt like they were nailed to the subfloor. Inside the office, a laugh erupted. It was a deep, resonant baritone, Richard's laugh. I'd heard it once, years ago, at a mutual friend's funeral. You don't forget the laugh of the man your wife used to love. Then Linda's voice, high, girlish, a tone she hadn't used with me since the Obama administration. "Stop it, Rick! The painters are going to hear you!" Rick, not Richard, Rick. "Let them hear," he said. His voice was closer to the door now. "It's our name on the wall, babe. We can do whatever we want." We. I backed away. I didn't storm in. I didn't kick the door down. I didn't scream like a wounded animal, even though my insides felt like they were being shredded by a dull knife. I backed up, step by silent step, until I hit the elevator call button. I left the Thai food on the floor. Let them think a delivery driver dropped it. Let them think it was a ghost. The ride down took forever. My reflection in the chrome doors had changed. The proud husband was gone. A fool stared back at me. A 55-year-old fool with a maxed-out credit line and a stomach full of acid. I got into my 2016 Honda Accord. It was parked next to a Porsche Cayenne, a white one, with tan leather seats. I recognized the license plate frame, alumni of UNC, Richard's School. I sat in my car. I put the key in the ignition, but I didn't turn it. I just gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned the color of old bone. I needed to understand the math. 3 months ago, Linda had come to me with tears in her eyes. She was suffocating in her corporate staging job. She had a vision, a high-end residential design firm. She had clients lined up. She just needed capital. "The banks won't lend to a startup without collateral, Ben," she'd said. She was wearing her blue silk robe, sitting on the edge of our bed, looking so fragile. "I need this. I need to build something of my own." I was the provider. That's who I've always been. I'm not exciting. I'm not Rick. I'm Ben. Ben pays the mortgage. Ben fixes the water heater. Ben makes sure the cars have oil. So I did it. I called Vanguard. I authorized the withdrawal. I paid the penalty. The tax hit was going to be massive, but I swallowed it. I transferred $185,000 into our joint checking account and then into her business account. $185,000. The money I was supposed to use so I wouldn't have to greet people at Walmart when I was 70. I started the car. The engine rattled. It needed a new timing belt. I'd put off the repair because Linda needed a marketing budget. I drove home on autopilot. I don't remember the highway. I don't remember the exit. I just remember the heat rising in my chest, a physical temperature spike that made me sweat through my windbreaker. When I got to our house, the house I'd bought in 1998, the house where we raised our daughter, it looked different. It looked like a set piece, a facade. I walked inside. It was quiet. Linda wouldn't be home for hours. She was meeting with vendors. I went straight to her home office. Usually I respected her privacy. Creative chaos, she called it. But today, the door was open. I sat at her desk. It was an antique mahogany piece I'd refinished for her anniversary present 5 years ago. I opened the top drawer. Just pens, notepads. I opened the bottom drawer. Client files, fabric swatches. I looked around the room. There was a stack of shoeboxes in the closet, labeled Taxes 2020, Taxes 2021, and one on the bottom, pushed way to the back, unlabeled. I pulled it out. My hands were shaking so bad I ripped the cardboard lid. Inside wasn't tax returns. It was the real paperwork. I found the commercial lease for Suite 1406. Tenant, Stevenson Holdings, LLC. Guarantor, Richard Stevenson. I stared at the paper. Why would Richard sign the lease? If Linda was the owner, why was her name nowhere on the occupancy agreement? Then I found the operating agreement for Miller and Stevenson Designs. Partner A, Linda Miller, 50%. Partner B, Richard Stevenson, 50%. Capital contribution. Partner A, Linda, $185,000. Partner B, Richard, 0. Sweat equity, brand management. I actually laughed, a dry hacking sound. She had put in my money, he had put in his name, and they split it 50-50. But that wasn't the smoking gun. The smoking gun was underneath the operating agreement. It was the loan document from the regional bank, the one I had co-signed, the one that was supposed to be for equipment, furniture, and leasehold improvements. I read the fine print. I read every single word. And there it was. Paragraph 14, subsection C. Material breach and use of funds. The legal jargon was dense, but I've worked in logistics for 3 decades. I read contracts for a living. I know what happens when a bill of lading doesn't match the cargo. The borrower agrees that all funds shall be used solely for the benefit of the business entity listed on this application, Linda Miller Interiors. Any transfer of funds, assets, or beneficial ownership to a third party not disclosed to the lender constitutes immediate default. The loan was for Linda Miller Interiors. That was the LLC she told me about. The business on the door was Miller and Stevenson Designs, a different LLC. She took the money from Entity A, the one I was liable for, and funneled it into Entity B, the one she shared with Richard. It was fraud, plain and simple. It was also theft. I sat back in my refinished chair. The room spun. Richard Stevenson. I needed to remember who he was. I needed to remember why this hurt so much. I met Linda 2 years after their divorce. She was broken. He had cheated on her, spent her savings, and left her for a 22-year-old tennis instructor. She cried on our second date, telling me about how he made her feel small, how he called her plain. I spent 25 years making her feel big. I paid for her night classes. I paid for the braces for her daughter from a previous relationship, my stepdaughter Sarah, who I love more than life itself. I paid for the vacations to Tuscany because she needed inspiration. And Richard? He washed out. The tennis instructor left him. He tried to start a real estate firm in 2008. Bad timing. He filed for bankruptcy. But apparently, he had crawled back. When? How? I looked at the date on the operating agreement, January 14th. 4 months ago. She had been planning this while I was sitting at the kitchen table, eating meatloaf, asking her how her day was. She had been planning this while I was signing the 401k withdrawal papers, my hand cramping, worrying about the tax penalties. "You're my hero, Ben," she had said then. She kissed my cheek. "You're making my dreams come true." She left out the part about whose dream it really was. I heard the garage door rumble. Panic, pure, cold adrenaline spiked in my veins. She was home early. I shoved the papers back into the shoebox. I shoved the shoebox back into the closet, behind the 2021 taxes. I smoothed the rug. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I couldn't confront her yet. Not yet. If I confronted her now, she'd lie. She'd say it was a misunderstanding. She'd say Richard was just a consultant. She'd gaslight me until I apologized for snooping. And worse, if she knew I knew, she'd warn Richard. They'd hide the money. They'd cook the books. I needed to be smart. I needed to be Ben from logistics. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. I splashed water on my face. I grabbed an apple from the bowl and leaned against the counter, trying to look casual, trying to look like a man who hadn't just seen his execution order in brushed brass. The door opened. Linda breezed in. She looked radiant. She was wearing a cream-colored blazer and holding a bottle of wine. "Ben," she chirped, "you're home. Oh, look at you. Did you have a good day?" She kissed me. I smelled it on her. Under the expensive perfume, under the scent of the Chardonnay she'd probably had at lunch. She smelled like him, a faint trace of cologne, musk, and cedar. I bit into the apple so I wouldn't scream. "Fine," I said. My voice sounded rusty. "Just a normal day." "I have great news," she said, pouring herself a glass. She didn't offer me one. "The signage went up today. It looks, oh, Ben, it looks so professional. I wish you could see it." "I can't wait," I said. "Soon," she promised. "The grand opening is Friday. You'll see it then." She turned away to put her purse on the counter. It was the Hermes bag, the one that cost $2,800. I bought it for her 50th birthday. "By the way," she said casually, "I need you to sign one more thing for the bank, just a formality, something about insurance."
She slid a paper across the granite countertop. It wasn't about insurance.
I glanced at it. It was a modification of guarantee. It was a document that would release the bank's lien on the physical assets of the business, the furniture, the computers, the inventory, and transfer that liability solely to my personal real estate, my house. She wanted to unsecure the business assets so she could move them, or so Richard could claim them if the business folded. And she wanted to put our home, my home, on the chopping block instead. She was trying to strip the copper wiring out of our marriage before burning the house down. "I'm tired, Lynn," I said, pushing the paper back. "I'll look at it in the morning. My eyes are shot from the spreadsheets." She stiffened. Just for a second, a tiny micro-expression of annoyance. Then the mask slid back on. "Okay, sweetie, but I need it by tomorrow noon. The bank is nagging me." "Sure," I said. "Tomorrow." I went upstairs. I didn't sleep in our bed. I told her my back was acting up and went to the guest room. I laid in the dark, staring at the ceiling fan. I had 3 days until the grand opening. 3 days until Friday. If I signed that paper, I would lose the house when they inevitably defaulted on the loan I was paying for. If I screamed at her now, they would circle the wagons. I needed help. I grabbed my phone. It was 11:42 p.m. I texted the only lawyer I knew who wouldn't charge me $500 an hour just to say hello. Dave Henderson. We played pickup basketball at the Y on Saturdays. He was a commercial litigator who specialized in messy divorces and messier business breakups. Ben. Emergency. Need to see you 7 a.m., please. Dave. You okay? Ben. No. The next morning, I left the house before Linda woke up. I didn't make coffee. Dave's office was in a strip mall, sandwiched between a chiropractor and a vape shop. It smelled like old paper and lemon polish. Dave listened. He didn't interrupt. He sat behind his desk, eating a bagel, while I laid it all out. The sign, the lease, the loan, the smell of cedar cologne on my wife's blazer. When I finished, Dave wiped a crumb of cream cheese from his beard. "Okay," he said. "Here's the good news. She's greedy, and he's arrogant."
"How is that good news?" I asked. "Because arrogant people get sloppy." Dave pulled a legal pad forward. "They formed a new LLC, right? Miller and Stevenson?" "Yes." "But the loan is in your name for the old entity?" "Yes." "And the assets, the computers, the desks, the fancy lamps? Bought with the loan money." Dave smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was a shark smile. "Ben, technically, those assets belong to Linda Miller Interiors. If they are currently sitting in the office of Miller and Stevenson, that is commingling of funds and unauthorized transfer of collateral. But more importantly," he tapped the pen on the desk, "the bank doesn't know about Stevenson, do they?" "No, I checked the loan file. He's not mentioned." "That is a material adverse change. Most commercial loans have a change of control clause. If the ownership structure changes, or if the borrower enters into a lease that jeopardizes the repayment ability, the bank can call the loan." "Call the loan?" I asked. "You mean ask for the money back?" "I mean freeze everything," Dave said. "If we alert the bank's fraud department that the funds were used to set up a competitor entity, which is essentially what Miller and Stevenson is, they will lock that account so fast her head will spin. It's a breach of contract." "But I'm on the hook for the debt," I said. "We'll get to that. First, we stop the bleeding. We stop the party." Dave looked at his calendar. "When is the grand opening?" "Friday, 5 p.m. Dave checked his watch. "Today is Wednesday. That gives us 48 hours to draft the affidavit, gather the proof, and serve the bank. We time it right, and the freeze hits right when they're popping the champagne." "And the house?" I asked. "She wants me to sign over the house liability." "Don't sign it," Dave said. "Actually, wait." He leaned back, eyes narrowing. "Tell her you signed it. Tell her you dropped it off at the bank directly. Buy us time. Let them think they've won. Let them think you're the dumb, compliant husband one last time. I nodded. A cold calm was settling over me. One more thing, Dave said. You need to go to that party. I can't, I said. I'll vomit. You have to. You need to be there when the card declines. You need to be the witness. And, he paused, you need to make sure you have the spare key to that office. Wednesday night and Thursday were a blur of acting. I call it my gray rock performance. I went home, I ate dinner, I asked Linda about the floral arrangements.
"Oh, Ben, we got these importing hydrangeas," she gushed. She was texting while she talked to me, smiling at her screen. The vendor, said they're exquisite." "Sounds expensive," I said, cutting my chicken. "You have to spend money to make money," she recited, a phrase she'd never used until 3 months ago, a Richard phrase. "Did you sign the guarantee?" she asked, not looking up. "Dropped it off this morning," I lied, handed it right to the branch manager. "You're the best." She finally looked up. Her eyes were bright, manic. "This is it, Ben, our future." "Yes," I said, "our future." Thursday, while she was at the salon getting a $300 blowout, I met the private investigator Dave recommended. We needed proof that Richard was acting as an owner, not just a consultant. It didn't take long. The PI, a guy named Miller, no relation, thankfully, handed me a folder. "Guy's not subtle," the PI said. "He's been signing contracts with vendors as principal owner. He's on the website, which is password protected right now, but I got in. His bio lists him as co-founder. And here." He slid a photo across the table. It was taken 3 days ago. Linda and Richard standing on the balcony of the office suite. He had his arm around her waist. Her head was on his shoulder. They were toasting with champagne glasses.
"They look like a couple," the PI said. "A happy couple." I stared at the photo. My wife. The woman I held when her mother died. The woman I nursed through the flu. The woman I nearly bankrupted myself for. "They are a couple," I said. "They're a couple of thieves." Friday morning arrived. The grand opening. I went to work. I had to keep the routine. I sat in my cubicle at the logistics center, moving shipping containers from Savannah to Memphis on a screen, while my stomach did backflips. At 2 p.m., Dave texted me. "Dave, the package is delivered to the bank's risk management officer. I spoke to him. He was very interested. He's sending a rep to the site." "Ben, when?" "He'll be there by 5:15. The accounts are being flagged as we speak. The freeze initiates at 5 p.m. sharp." I left work early. I went home and showered. I put on my best suit. It was a charcoal gray suit I'd bought for Sarah's wedding. It was a little tight in the shoulders, but I looked respectable. I looked like a man who paid his bills. I drove to the city. The parking lot was full. Valet parking, of course. I handed my keys to the kid. "Keep it close," I said. "I won't be staying long." I took the elevator up. The same ride as Tuesday. But this time, I wasn't holding noodles. I was holding a folder. Inside was a copy of the loan breach notice, the PI's photos, and a printout of the text messages I'd pulled from her iPad, which was synced to her phone. I walked down the hall. The door was propped open. Music spilled out. Jazz. Smooth, expensive jazz. I stepped inside. It was beautiful. I have to give 'em that. The space was gorgeous. Modern furniture, abstract art, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline. It was crowded, maybe 50 people. Potential clients, city council members, friends of Richard. And there they were, holding court in the center of the room. Linda looked stunning in a red dress I'd never seen before. Richard was wearing a navy suit that cost more than my car. He had a hand on the small of her back, possessive, confident. He was laughing that deep baritone laugh. Someone spotted me. "Oh, is this the husband?" Linda's head snapped toward me. Her smile faltered for a microsecond, then reattached itself. "Ben," she waved, "come here, come meet everyone." She didn't come to me, she summoned me, like a servant. I walked over. Richard didn't remove his hand from her back. He looked me up and down, smirking. "Benjamin," he said. He extended a hand, manicured nails. "Good to finally meet the silent partner." "I'm not silent today," I said. I didn't shake his hand. The air shifted. People nearby stopped talking. "Oh, don't be grumpy, Ben," Linda hissed, her smile tight. "This is a celebration." "Is it?" I asked. I looked around the room. "Is this what my $185,000 bought? It's nice, very tasteful." "Ben, you're making a scene," she whispered. "I'm just admiring the investment," I said. I raised my voice slightly. "It's amazing what you can build with a retirement fund and a forgery." Richard stepped forward. "Okay, pal, maybe you should grab a drink and cool off." "I don't drink with people who steal from me," I said. The jazz music seemed to get louder as the conversation around us died. Just then, a waiter approached Linda. He looked nervous. He was holding a portable credit card terminal. "Miss Miller," he said softly, "I'm so sorry to interrupt, but the card for the catering, it declined." Linda rolled her eyes. "Don't be ridiculous. Run it again. It's a platinum business card." "I did, ma'am, 3 times. It says, 'Pick up card, fraud alert.'" Linda's face went pale. She looked at Richard. "Rick, give him your card. The bank must have flagged a large transaction." Richard pulled out a sleek black card. He handed it to the waiter with a sneer. "Banks," he muttered to the group, "so incompetent." The waiter inserted the chip. We all watched. Beep. "Declined," the waiter said. "That's impossible," Richard snapped. "There's 50 grand in that operating account." "Actually," a voice came from the doorway, "there's $0 available in that account as of 5:01 p.m. We all turned. A man in a cheap suit, carrying a briefcase, walked in. He was flanked by 2 uniformed police officers. "Who the hell are you?" Richard demanded. "I'm Mr. Sowerberry," the man said, "risk management for First Citizens Bank, and I'm here to serve a notice of material breach and acceleration of debt."
He walked right up to Linda. "Miss Miller, we have evidence that loan funds allocated for Linda Miller Interiors were diverted to an unauthorized entity, Miller and Stevenson Designs. Furthermore, we have evidence of a lease signed by a third party, Mr. Stevenson, effectively transferring control of the business assets without lender consent." The room was deadly silent. "What does that mean?" Linda whispered. Her voice trembled. "It means," I said, stepping forward, "that the bank has called the loan. The full $185,000 is due, immediately." "You did this," she said. She looked at me, eyes wide. "Ben, you did this." "I did," I said. "And since I knew you couldn't pay it, and since I didn't sign that guarantee you tried to trick me with," I pulled the folder from under my arm. "Mr. Sowerberry, I believe the collateral for the loan includes all physical assets purchased with the funds. Furniture, computers, artwork?" "That is correct," the banker said. "We are seizing the assets to recoup the debt." "Wait," Richard shouted. "You can't take this stuff. This is my office." "Is your name on the loan, sir?" the banker asked. "No, but—" "Then you have no standing here. Officers, please secure the premises. Everyone needs to leave. This is now bank property." The humiliation was absolute. The guests began to scramble, put down glasses, grabbed purses. Nobody wanted to be part of a police raid. Linda grabbed my arm. Her nails dug into my suit jacket. "Ben, stop this. Please, we can fix this. You're destroying us." I looked at her hand. The diamond ring I bought her 20 years ago was gone. She wasn't wearing it. "I'm not destroying you, Linda," I said. "I'm just balancing the ledger." Richard turned on her. The smooth facade cracked. "You said he was an idiot," he screamed. "You said he wouldn't notice until the next tax cycle. You said you had the house secured." "I thought I did," she shrieked back. "He said he signed it." "He lied," Richard yelled. "Imagine that," I said, "lying to the person you're supposed to trust. Hurts, doesn't it?" I walked over to the buffet table. I picked up a shrimp skewer. I took a bite. It was delicious. "You have 10 minutes to vacate," the police officer announced. I turned to leave. I didn't look back at them. I walked out into the hallway, past the brass sign. Miller and Stevenson Designs. I stopped. I took a key out of my pocket, my house key. I dragged the jagged edge of the key across the brass plaque. A deep, jagged scratch right through the ampersand. I took the elevator down. The drive home was quiet. No radio, just the wind. When I got home, I packed her bags. I didn't burn her clothes. I didn't cut them up. I folded them neatly. I put them in the expensive suitcases I'd paid for. I put the boxes on the front porch. Then I changed the locks. I sat on the front steps and waited. She arrived an hour later in an Uber. Richard hadn't driven her. Of course not. When the money dried up, so did the ride. She ran up the driveway, mascara running down her cheeks. "Ben, let me in. We need to talk." "No," I said, "we don't." "He tricked me," she sobbed. "Richard, he manipulated me. I was confused, Ben. It was a midlife crisis. I love you." "You love my credit score," I said, "and you love the safety net I provided. But you cut the net, Linda." "Where am I supposed to go?" she wailed. "I have no money. The bank froze the accounts." "I hear Richard has a nice apartment," I said. "Oh, wait, he leases that too, doesn't he? I wonder if he's paid the rent this month." She pounded on the door. She screamed. She cried. I went inside and put on my noise-canceling headphones. I watched a documentary about World War II. I fell asleep in the recliner. The next 6 months were hard. I won't lie and say it was a fairy tale. The divorce was messy, but Dave Henderson was a pit bull. Because I had triggered the breach, the bank seized the office assets. They auctioned off the furniture and the electronics. It didn't cover the whole $185,000, obviously. I was still on the hook for the remainder, about $90,000. But here is the beautiful part. Because Linda had formed a separate entity with Richard and transferred the funds, Dave argued that they had committed fraud against me. We sued Richard Stevenson personally for unjust enrichment and tortious interference. Richard tried to fight it, but the PI's evidence was damning. The texts proved he knew the money came from my retirement and that they planned to cut me out. Richard settled. He sold his Porsche, he liquidated his crypto portfolio, which wasn't worth much, but it helped. He wrote me a check for $65,000. Linda got nothing. She walked away with her clothes and her Hermes bag. Last I heard, she sold the bag on eBay to pay for a deposit on a studio apartment in Gastonia. I sold the big house. It was too much ghost for one man. I used the equity to pay off the rest of the bank loan. I was debt-free. My retirement fund was battered, but not dead. I had 10 years left to work. I could rebuild. I bought a small cabin near the lake. Just 2 bedrooms, a nice porch. I started a garden. Tomatoes, peppers, things that take time and patience to grow. Last Tuesday, I was at the grocery store. I ran into an old friend of ours, Susan. She used to be Linda's brunch buddy. Susan stopped me in the aisle. She looked awkward. "Ben," she said, I wanted to say, we all know what happened, what she did." I tightened my grip on the cart. "It's okay, Susan." "No," she said, "it's not. We all thought you were the boring one, the stick in the mud." She laughed nervously. "But you're the only one with any integrity. Linda, she's calling everyone, trying to borrow money. Nobody is picking up." "I hope she finds her way," I said, and I meant it. I didn't hate her anymore. Hate takes too much energy. I just felt indifferent. "You look good, Ben," Susan said. "I feel good," I said. I drove back to my cabin. My dog, a rescue mutt named Buster, was waiting on the porch. He doesn't care about interior design. He doesn't care about status. He just cares that I come home. I sat on the porch with a beer. I looked at my bank app. Balance, $12,400. Debt, zero. It wasn't a fortune, but it was mine. Every single cent. I thought about the brass sign, Miller and Stevenson. I heard the building management took it down and melted it for scrap. I took a sip of beer. The sun was setting over the trees, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold that no designer could ever replicate. They wanted to build an empire on my back. They forgot that I was the one holding the foundation. When you break the foundation, the whole thing comes down. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I just pulled my support and watched them fall.